nothing is good in our country. You know, nothing is working. Nobody's getting jobs. So it's you know that if you put rats in a bucket, they'll all climb on each other, trying to drag each other down to get to the top, because they're trying to save themselves. It's survival. But at the same time, you have to have a little bit more thought into it. That if it's this person, I'm next. I'm not absolved from the wrath of politicians and just the world in general.
The show is Engineer Your Life, and I'm Lungelo, okay? The funny thing, when you're sitting across somebody, you're like, I'm so obsessed with you! So I'll try my best to not behave like a fan, but I promise you, here, we're professional. We'll have a good conversation as young people who are fully immersed with the happenings of this country, be it the political side, our vulnerability, our heart, the industry, culture. She's very cooler than I am, but we'll get into that. Amahle rather, Jaxx. That is it. That is it, right? The Jaxx is just but
a surname, make it cute.
Yeah. How's your heart today, Jaxx?
I'm exhausted. Oh, this is why the tissues are out. I'm very exhausted currently. Lots of work, but obviously very grateful. Mm-hmm. I feel like when you start asking for or rather start receiving what you've been asking for, you almost don't have room to complain.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I asked for this. I can't complain about how tired I am. Yeah. But honestly, I'm very tired, but I'm also very excited to be here. We've been trying to do this for months, and to be here finally.
All in good time.
All in good time, right?
Yeah.
So I'm exhausted, but I'm very grateful for where I am in my life currently. And so I think that's the short answer.
I love that, because you're affirming me and saying you're exhausted by God's blessings. I was chatting to a friend of mine, Angel, this morning, and we were speaking about, friend, every time we complain as friends, because that's what friends are for, we complain to each other. Yeah. We're actually complaining about how good God is.
Yes.
We're actually mostly complaining about being overwhelmed, not from a place of lack.
100%.
Not from a place of debilitating pain. Yes, some things are painful, but it's not from a place of pain that is crippling.
100%.
Right?
And I've been through the pain that is crippling, and this is a better complaint.
Yeah.
I was also speaking to my friend this morning, Titsi. 45-minute conversation, and I answer the phone, and she's like, "How are you?" And I'm like, "I'm tired." She's like, "You sound tired." And then I was just speaking about what's happening in my life, and all of that is almost as if you always want to remind yourself of gratitude, because you don't want it to be taken away. The power and the might of God, as you say, and as quickly as it's come, it can also go.
Sure.
It's like a weird feeling. You don't want to complain that things are a bit hard right now, because in the greater scheme of things are good.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Things are actually flowing.
Yeah.
And hardship is part of flow. When a river flows, there are rocks there, there's seaweed, there are stones.
You're a philosopher.
Do you know what I mean? I'm that guy.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. Because there's no road that we walk in this life that is not treacherous at some point or the other. I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make as human beings is trying to reach this utopia of just like, you think you're going to get to a point in your life where you're 100% happy and everything is excellent. And I've never viewed life in that way. I've always felt like there are happy moments, but everything else is bang on average, very hard at times, difficult, confusing. But overall, if you look at your life holistically, life is pretty good.
So, Amahle, ngumXhosa.
Fully.
Lovely.
Ngingayenza mistake nje. I know my name is Zili, but my parents are a little bit childish.
Was there an Eastern Cape era about 15 years ago where we lived there?
I've always lived there. Yeah,
Really?
I grew up in Islalini. I grew up in Queenstown, a small little town. So I grew up in Queenstown, where I would be in the suburbs during the week, and then I would go to Islalini in the weekend to be with my grandparents. And so I kind of lived a double life, if you want to, like switching on a light like this and then going home to my grandparents, and it's paraffin lamps and kubaswa phandle, so you're making a fire outside to cook at times, and it's not to say that my grandparents were in like abject poverty. It's just that it was a rural life.
Yeah.
Fresh milk, fresh eggs, the heavy iron that had to be heated on. I don't know if you guys still remember
the metal iron. Yes,
I think that one needs to come back.
Heated on the stove.
The way I fought with this shirt this morning. So yeah, I grew up in the Eastern Cape. I loved growing up in the Eastern Cape. I'm still very much Xhosa. I lived in Joburg for now about 15 years, but I'm an Eastern Cape girlie.
Do we still have a home there?
Yeah, my
Queenstown.
mom. So we didn't move to East London.
Oh.
So I moved first because when I was in grade 8 or 9, grade 8 and 9, I started getting bullied.
Okay.
And so what's this thing called? I applied to the school myself. I saved up my pocket money. I applied to a new school. And then I told my mom, like, I'm not going back there. It was an all girls school. And I just didn't feel like I
fit in.
Yeah. And I had been in all girls school my whole life, by the way. These are people I've come up with. But something shifted when I got to high school. And so I moved first and then my mom followed me. So we have our home in East London now. And then we still have my grandparents' house. I was there in June. Although they've passed away, we still go there for family occasions and all that other stuff. And that's something I'm very proud of. And that's my culture. And it's something, I was having a conversation with my mom, and there's certain upgrades that we want to do. And the question was like, but we don't come here often. And I was like, but when we do come, this is home for me. Anytime anything anytime I'm going through anything in my life, I like to go home. I like to go set foot where my grandparents are. I can't explain it. There's just something about beginyao kokwenu. And then when I come back, it's brand deals. It's this opportunity. It's that opportunity. So for me, my ancestors and God do so much for me in the Eastern Cape. So I'll never let that go.
Queenstown, you don't go back there anymore. But what I know about Queenstown right now is that everybody grooves at YOLO. They have one place.
It is a one-horse town. It is a one-horse town with one street, one main long street.
Yeah, the one where McDonald's is.
McDonald's, KFC. There's like about 3 KFCs. Yeah, but that's where I grew up. It was a good place to grow up.
Take me into that era of bullying. I know probably it's not a nice point, season of your life. But in this context of kids who are growing up so much in the TikTok social media era, I think their bullying is so mega than what we experienced when we were growing up.
Yeah.
How did you handle bullying, and what do you think you were being bullied for?
First of all, just to start with, in the context of this era, I think our bullying was much milder, and our bullying was less permanent. I'm not just to strip away its effects, but it happened at a certain place and then it ended there. So if it was at school, it was at school. If it was on your street, it was on your street. But now I think it's orbiting to children at all points of their lives. I mean, everyone's got a phone in their hand at all times. So if there's a video you don't like about you, it's there for years. I haven't seen my bullies in decades. Do you know what I mean?
Correct.
But when it's on a phone, it's consistently there, and it's a consistent reminder of whether you've made a mistake or not, or whether it was just pure bullying. I think it's definitely a tougher time. But for me, it was just being a suburb girl, predominantly white school, where there was a lot of black children in Queenstown. I wasn't the first or anything like that. It was just it was kind of, I just felt like I didn't belong. You know, I never fit into this girls' school and the way things are meant to be done. And I remember this one incident of being confronted by these matrics because I went to a party with my brother. And then it was a whole thing, but it went back all the way to grade 7, I think it was, because I remember we went on grade 7 tour, and I remember the first conversation of when HIV AIDS became a thing, and the whole thing was like, oh, people who are skinny usually, you know, or rather an effect of HIV AIDS is losing weight, right? Not necessarily being skinny, but losing weight. And a rumor starting when we were on Cape Town tour that I had AIDS, you know? And I remember just it being so, just so strange, and being so sad on that school trip, the grade 7 trip to Cape Town, because of that rumor going around. It was just not the best thing. But it was also like, my bullying era was so strange because one moment I was in and then the next moment I was out, you know, with the cool kids and not so cool kids. Mm-hmm. It was almost like I was in two worlds at the same time. So that was kind of it for me. And it's made me who I am today, I guess. It made me extremely tough because I was a very shy child.
Really?
Very quiet.
Now it's Miss Hauser.
Yay. I was an extremely shy child. I was very quiet into myself, and I don't necessarily think I was confident. I think one of my grade 1 teachers also bullied me. I still remember her name, Mrs. Staffen. She was never happy with anything that I did. You know, she was never happy. I got into grade 1 knowing how to read, basically, because my grandfather would teach me how to read, and we had all these encyclopedias at home, and she would just not. Everything that I did with her was wrong, and this is something I went through in therapy, that she was one of the people in my life, one of those core traumas. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's what it was like for me. But I made the choice. I was like, I'm not going to stay here anymore. So I moved schools. I moved to Hudson Park in East London. And there I felt like I fit in finally and made friends. And because I was so traumatized with having like one solid group of friends where you never knew what was going to happen. One moment you're at the bottom of the food chain. When I got to Hudson, I befriended everyone. Mm-hmm. I would have break with these girls on this day, then those guys, and then I go chill with the rugby guys, and I go chill, you know. I think it was a response.
Yeah. Searching.
Yeah, a response to say that I will never put myself into being held to one group of people.
In a box. I don't want to put myself in a box.
Yeah.
Fast forward, you now, I wouldn't even say come across, but we can see that you exude the confidence. You stand your ground. You're bold in what you believe in.
Yeah.
Even in how you dress, you show that I love who I am and I love how I express myself.
Yes.
How do we switch from that place of being completely shy with no confidence, overly self-aware in the wrong negative things, to being self-aware in the good and making sure that you turn around that negativity into positive?
I think in the beginning, it was a lot of faking it till you make it. The confidence was very fake.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, what does Rihanna say? Just pretend or whatever if you're not feeling so great. There was a lot of, I think I spent, especially my early 20s, there was like a facade to put on. Like, this is Jaxx. This is what she looks like outside. You know, very extroverted, very loud, and I think very much a contribution of being bullied and stuff like that. Like, I must be likable. I must be fun. I must be this and that. And then that kind of led me into a life where I kind of became a people pleaser. Mm-hmm. You know, you just go, I'm an Omoya. You go with the wind, whatever's everybody's saying, how everyone's dressing, you dress that way, and so on and so forth. And then around 2020, I just didn't like myself at all. And that's when I started therapy. I love therapy. You will never convince me. So that's when I started therapy. And
I've been in therapy for 7 years, so I know what you mean.
I'm going on, 5 years now consistently, you know? Yeah. And I think that's when and you've been through therapy. First, we break you, and we break you so we can find all the issues that you have. So that moment when we were sitting with my therapist and I was explaining my grade 1 and she was like, that's a trauma, my grade 1 teacher, or issues with my family in this point, or that we broke all of that down. And then we've spent the last 3 years now rebuilding that.
Yeah.
And so for me, then it was, my therapist we would do a variety of tests and she'd say, by the way, you're actually an introvert in real life. Shocker. Because I'm the life of the party. What do you mean I'm an introvert? You know what I mean? And just, yes, you are a type A personality. Lean into that. It's okay to be this. You don't have to be this free spirit, Yes, you like order. Yes, you like control. These are the things that make you who you are.
Yeah.
And so that's when the switch happened for me. And I think I became quite relentless in my pursuit of like, this is who I am. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. These are the boundaries that I'm putting up. And I'm sure you went through this when you started therapy, you lose a lot of people along the way because you no longer go with you're just not the person who goes.
The people pleaser, you don't go with the wind, you have boundaries, healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
You can say no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I don't want to have this shot of tequila.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's kind of been the journey for me in the last 5 years. And I think that's where the confidence has come from. And it's only been in the last year, I would say, where I fully feel like, oh, I'm actually confident in myself and my abilities. But before that, we were just winging it.
You've built a large digital community on TikTok, which can be quite overwhelming. Ask me, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
And it comes with a lot of pressures. But before we get into those pressures, why, when you realize now that I'm not just making videos, I have to be intentional about every piece of content that I put out, why did you take that decision to commit to it? What is it in young people that you wanted to see happening?
So I always have conversations with my friends about politics, current affairs. I have those kinds of friends. We debate things. What's Trump going to say? What's this? What's going to happen there? But I quickly noticed that was almost unique, not unique in the sense that me and my friends are the only people who speak about politics. I'm not saying that, please. I just felt like the more I engaged with people who were younger than me,
they're detached.
Yeah. They don't, it's not even detached. They almost don't have the knowledge.
Sure.
They just don't know what's happening. And I found that out in my own home. My brother, who's 10 years younger than me, had no real care for politics or what's happening in the country. I think the first big fight was him when we were voting last year and him saying he's not going to vote. And then that causing quite a rift in the family group. And me whiling, like, what do you mean you're not going to vote? This is so important, whatever. And him just having like, not a no care, but kind of just not understanding the importance of it. And I kind of clicked on that and I was just like, maybe that's something that we need to explore. How can I use myself? Because this is something that comes naturally to me. And that's kind of how it evolved, slowly but surely. How do I explain the ICJ? How do I explain this? But more than anything, I just felt like our country's in a dire situation. And as someone who understands the importance of being involved in society, I think we all enter a social contract that we don't necessarily always understand, right? Which is that if you want, first of all, that we don't live in isolation as a people. So the decisions that we make quite literally affect the next person. Littering is a very good example of it. When you throw that paper away, it affects how that other person, how this place looks. It affects, what's this thing called? It affects the environment, it affects cleaning. Now the cleaner has to come in earlier because it's so dirty on the streets. All these other things, it's like an ecosystem. And I kind of just wanted to tap into that, I think. And I think it was important for me because I just felt like young people just weren't grasping it as much. Yeah.
You said the country is in a dire situation. And I'll make an example by asking rather, what keeps you awake at night? My side, the state of Johannesburg keeps me awake because I live alone. and I pay 2,000 Rand electricity living alone because the price of electricity is absurd and I live alone.
Yeah.
I live alone and I need to have an electric fence and beams in my garden because being alone means I'm more prone to them coming in and causing criminality in my house.
Yeah.
And then I find out through Mkhwanazi and the commission that, wait a minute, even if I do call them, the police, nothing will happen to the criminals because they are being run by syndicates.
Yeah.
So those type of things keep me awake at night as the dire situations in this country. What do you think are the pressing dire situations right now?
For me, it's corruption, which I think, is glaringly obvious. Because the corruption feeds into everything else. Two things for me that I think in this country that keep me up at night are the state of healthcare, the state of education, and the state of security. So that's three things. And that's because all those for me are directly impact people. You know, the middle class at some point wasn't really complaining much about corruption because they were absolved from it, right? Because the cost of living was decent enough that I don't really care if Tembisa Hospital doesn't have beds because I'm going to walk over to
Netcare or what?
Yeah, and I'm going to get sorted. Now, private is also seeing bears and it's fires. So for me, I'll start with education because the youth needs education. You cannot keep your country stupid. You cannot look at the state of the economy and say, oh, people need to be entrepreneurs, but our pass rate is 33%. Telling somebody that they need to know a third of their work to get through life is just unreasonable, quite simply. And then that education feeds into the healthcare in the sense that people need to have resources to take care of themselves. The amounts that we're paying for medical aids and all this other stuff are just exorbitant, right? And then we move into security. The police, we are all overinsured. We all have beams and cameras. I mean, I remember when I first walked into my mother's house and she had cameras and I was just like, what's happening here? This is so strange.
CIA.
Like, what's going on? Like, why did you get cameras? And she was like, they've been like 5 break-ins around the house. And our house never used to have a wall. The whole time I grew up, you could just walk into our house and now we've had to build a wall. So those are all the things. But I think in general, the entire country is on its knees. As someone who buys the paper every Sunday, every department, there's corruption in tourism. The board did this. There's corruption with CETA. There's corruption. Social development. It's gotten to a point where I don't think there is a part of the state that hasn't been tainted by corruption. And that's devastating because those who benefit from corruption, when you're taking away like the basic needs of people, I just can't understand why. When you inflate your invoice, okay, and then you don't even build not one toilet. What greed do we have as a society in South Africa? What individualism have we adopted in South Africa? We, speak about Ubuntu as a philosophy all over the world. People like to say there's this philosophy. Yeah, there's this philosophy in Southern Africa called Ubuntu where everybody shares everything, and yet here we are in Southern Africa and we don't experience it. So I'm just always questioning, what kind of society have we created where you really don't care about the next man? And what does that look like in the future?
I want us to look inward as well, Jaxx. We in the industry, me, podcaster, you who's been behind the scenes in marketing, in party lifestyle, in advertising, we are platforming though beneficiaries of corruption.
Okay.
And we know that they are beneficiaries of corruption.
Yes.
Both the men, the woman, their lives are fake. And we know it. That this person lives in a one-bedroom flat. Therefore, their Louis Vuitton cappuccino bag for 120,000 rand, they could have not possibly gotten it through legal means. That means there are about 5 beds or 110 beds at Tembisa Hospital that were not delivered.
Yes.
So that this person that we are platforming and making a demigod on social media gets their bag. Furthermore, we give them followers, we clap hands for them, we say mother in the comment sections.
Yeah.
Are we not at fault too that we claim that we don't want corruption, but we don't call out our friends who are beneficiaries of corruption?
Oh, lie. I can't fight that. Personally, I don't have Louis bag friends, those kinds of Louis bag friends. But I agree with you. I mean, remember there was a time where it was all aspirational before the veil was lifted to us.
Yes.
Before we understood that, a lot of these people are getting these items in nefarious ways, let's say. There was a time it was aspirational. And it's not a South African problem, it's a global phenomenon, right? We have become extremely capitalistic as a society where we measure our worth based on luxury goods and items. Even when we find out that the actual cost of making them is $12, but you're paying $1,000 for it. I 100% agree that we're also at fault for not calling it out if we see our peers, doing all these things. But then I ask you, is my role in life to parent and police people?
Sure.
Because I don't have anyone parenting and policing me except myself and my mother occasionally. But, do you know what I mean? So I then ask you, where do you think we've gone wrong globally, where our value has now become attached to the material possessions that we own? And then we compromise ourselves in order to get those things. Because I personally have never felt pressure to have designer goods. I'm middle class, I'm privileged, so maybe that's why. Because I can look at something and say, I'm not walking into the store and paying this amount of money and flinching. Because that's what I've always said. I'm never going to buy designer items until I can walk into a store and not even look at the price and say, I actually want this cup because I like the way it looks.
Yeah.
So I ask you, am I supposed to police people? What are we supposed to do? When we see baddies, for example, with the bags and then this thing, knowing very well that all of this is fake or it's stolen money? How would you approach it?
I think we should use the places where we have some sort of influence and control to effect controls that have values in it. I'll make an example. If you're a marketer for an entry-level cell phone, an entry-level clothing brand, Mr. Price, for example, what business do you have getting a baddie who's always in Louis Vuitton as the brand ambassador?
I 100% agree with you.
You yourself are part of the problem.
Yeah.
Because first, it's misalignment of brand. Secondly, you're telling a complete lie. And thirdly, your market is young kids and students. And the young kids and students, you are telling them to aspire to an impossible life by putting at the forefront the face of corruption to be the face of your brand.
No, I 100% agree with you. There's not enough due diligence and thought process into the kind of people we are making aspirational. We've turned capitalism into aspiration. Remember back in the day with our parents, aspiration was, what degree do you have?
Correct. Right. No teacher.
Yeah.
Oh, don't tell her what? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it is unfortunate. I remember having the funniest conversation with my friends about how, when we started clubbing, we would go into the club and we would stand by the bar the whole night. The whole night.
And dance.
And dance.
With dance before in the club.
Right? And dance our lives away. And then something switched and the girlies went from matric dresses straight into the section. And I remember us being so upset, like, why didn't they have to grovel like the rest of us? You know, I mean, they went from literally matric to champagne, matric to designer bags. You know what I mean? And the problem with that outlook is that 9 times out of 10, it's not sustainable. And I think big brands like luxury brands and so on have caught on that there's this entire market that is willing to, as you were saying, live in a 1-bedroom house in order to have nicer things. And so brands, brand managers, marketers are all liable, yes. But everybody is trying to just do their jobs at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They want to get their product to be viewed. So even at times when there's brand, and I don't agree with this necessarily, when there's brand misalignment, you know, people are like, well, at least there was a human billboard behind it. It's a very tricky one. It's a very tricky one.
What conversation are we having about actually, let's get straight into the commission that's currently going on, because it's a pivotal point. And it's actually a shift in our country, a shift we didn't see coming, a shift that was very much so necessary. As young people, how can we get involved in understanding that the state of corruption and infiltration of the crime intelligence, how bad it is?
So what's your question?
How can we get involved in assisting? Because as a citizen, we want to help. We're certainly becoming more aware. We were not aware. How do we get involved in things like that? Because as you're saying, young people were just, I'm just on TikTok dancing. Yeah.
I guess the first thing is to get informed, right? For me, understand what is actually happening. And I know it's not as easy for everyone. And I did a breakdown for one day, but then I went back to my school books and now people are yelling at me in the streets. Where's day 2 recap? And I'm so sorry, guys, but I have to try and get this degree. I think, first of all, equip yourself with the knowledge of what is actually happening. And then number 2, use your municipal vote next year in 2026 adequately. As you are equipping yourself with the knowledge and the information of the commissions, you are hearing so-and-so from this place, so-and-so from this place, so-and-so who's in charge of this, did this, and, you know, in terms of the commission and created this chaos and stopped this investigation. Equip yourself with the knowledge so you can change the power.
Sure.
Right? Because I think what we don't understand is how much power we have when we vote, right? The people I can't stand the most are people who don't vote at all. Because I think that's a lazy excuse to say that I don't have... There's no one, it's impossible that there's no one you align with the long row. I mean, our voting pages are so long.
Yeah.
You need to take the time to find the issues that matter most to you. And I had used this example when I was telling a story on Instagram story or whatever. If one of the things that appeals to you the most is, I think it's Musi Maimane who's championing some
education, the pass rate.
He's pass rate, and he's doing the one where the worker, your future employer cannot ask for your payslip.
Correct.
If that's the one thing you can hold on to, vote for him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If women and LGBTQIA+ issues or where you feel like, you know what, this is the one thing I can hold on to, then vote for this party. You know what I mean? But like I said on Instagram that day, know your master, know what he did to you, and unshackle yourself. The Bella Act, I remember doing a video recently on the Bella Act, and I was reading a newspaper article, and it was like, oh, on the 5th of September, they're closing comments on the 5th of September. And I was like, this is a very important bill to me because this is an education bill, right? This education bill is speaking about the size of classrooms, how many students a teacher is supposed to have. I mean, the physical size of class, how many teachers and so on and so forth. So I made a video and I explained some of the things that I thought to be important in the bill. And I said, please, can you go use your voice and go and add something there. So I think we make it more complex than it is at times, mostly because we don't understand how to use our voices, but the avenues are there. equip yourself with the information, use your vote, and then start being quite literally active in what's happening in your country. You know, you can't just put your head in the sand at critical moments like this. Like you're saying, there's a shift that's currently happening, you know, and it happens in every society, in every era of the world, as we're seeing now. Like, if you're looking, it's giving World War II, that kind of period where we completely moved towards capitalism and changed the way we lived as society, and individualism became, you know, kind of like the
forefront of who
we
we
are.
are.
Forefront of who we are.
Yeah.
There's a similar change that's happening. I'll use something as simple as people saying, I don't need the new iPhone anymore. As much as that is a economic issue, in the sense that people are like, well, I actually can't afford it. People are wising up that, why must I buy a new phone every year?
There's a level of activism there.
Right, right? Because
consciousness.
Yes, because Democratic Republic of Congo, we've seen the videos of what's happening there to make these iPhones of ours. You know, for me, there's a shift that's happening where I hope we are moving a little bit away from being so capitalistic and kind of thinking more about, like, how is the environment affected? How else can we create jobs other than buying phones from all those kinds of silly examples?
I love that. Even though perhaps I still have reservations of how it was executed. If coming from the perspective of saying people are no more conscious, even the backlash that personalities and influencers got for the Kealeboga saga was because people are conscious of, no, we're not going to let girls be trafficked anymore just willy-nilly. We might not have much power, but we can use our phones to scream.
And that's the thing for me. You know? I think one of the best examples of a society using their phones and saying no more is Arab Spring, I think 2011, which is when there was the revolution in was it Syria, Egypt, essentially those Arab countries at the top there, where it all started with the price of bread. I can't remember which exact country it was. The price of bread had increased so much, people mobilized on Twitter. And then that's when we saw this wave take over the Arab lands, where they were just protesting the amount of gluttony their leaders were doing and whatnot. And so that's where it starts, right? It's as easy as standing up for something on your phone. It's as easy as reposting something about Palestine. It's as easy as having an opinion on corruption, on the commission. We are waking up, right? And then it's almost, and that's why I'm saying incremental change. And then the question now is, so what's the next level? Then we have to mobilize on the ground. You have to make it a little bit inconvenient, because South Africa very much is a country that likes to complain online, but then doesn't take it to the next level. You have to inconvenience our politicians and the people in charge. Sure. Your march has to take place on a Monday. It must stop traffic. You must decide that nobody's buying anything. Shab, we're still buying from spaza shops because we don't want mamzos to go out of business, because they are the breadwinners of this country.
But not the multinationals.
Yeah.
Suffer.
You know, to decide one day and say, nobody is going into a mall on this day. Let's do an economic shutdown. Because that's the only time the people in charge wake up. Sure. Is when it affects their pockets.
Directly.
Immediately.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's almost as if there has to be a way to transition from digital to physical. Because digital is not enough. We've seen our leaders unshamed by anything.
No. Shameless.
You can't shame them.
Shameless.
You can't shame them on social media and say this and that and that. Whereas, you know, once you stop traffic, you know, once you shut down the economy, we see taxi drivers do it all the time.
Yeah.
When those guys decide they're going on strike, the whole economy stops.
And it works. All the time.
You also have that power as a person. But
Yeah.
we need to find a way to mobilize. But there's always a tipping point. And I think South Africa is going towards that.
Where we're going to tip over?
There's always a catalyst. There's always an event. There's always something that switches. If you were to look at 1976, you would say the massacre of students. Switch. We went from passive protests. Obviously, there was still, operations, whatever, but we went from passive to saying, okay, now we are no longer passive. We are extremely active. We're taking it to the streets. We're burning down institutions. No. I'm not saying we should burn down institutions.
Yeah.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's always a tipping point in everything.
Sure.
I think South Africa is headed to that point because when you tell graduates they must become lawyers, accountants, like our parents did and whatnot, and there's no jobs. And then you tell people in the rural areas that they must be farmers and all this other stuff, but there's no subsidies. And you tell people they should be educators and all of this stuff, but there's no resources to educate. Everybody's going to get frustrated at some point. And essentially, there will come a time where South Africa is ripe for revolution. And I think we're nearing that.
We're nearing it, eh? There's something that is also Miss Party Olwethu spoke about this on TikTok. She said the problem with people who were discriminated before is they graduate to becoming discriminators themselves, which is absurd to me that Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore, has just criminalized homosexuality. But you guys are worshipping him and saying, he's so amazing, he's bringing order to the country. And it's like, okay, do you think that if somebody imposes sanctions on a certain person's rights, your rights are not next? We have a problem in South Africa where different tribes, different religious beliefs, different gender groups are at war. Which is absurd to me because you are allowing the divide and conquer rule to actually affect us when our struggles are common.
100%. I said this once. I said, when you don't care about anyone, you'll be the next man that's not cared for.
Sure.
Under this guise of, you think that let's use that podcast that said those insane things about colored people.
Yes.
Right? Let's use that as an example. One of the most annoying or rather just confusing things about that whole thing was other groups who agreed with the podcast. First of all, that's what was used in apartheid South Africa to divide and conquer us, to say that the colored is higher than the black, but the Indian is higher than the black, and so on and so forth, and divide and conquer you so you can never mobilize against the man.
Sure.
Right? And so for me, I agree with Miss Party. I love Olwe, in the sense that we always think that just because it's happening to somebody else, it could never happen to me. You think you're absolved from the lashing, essentially. You think you're going to be absolved because you're black or because you're Xhosa, or because you're this or you're that. That's how it starts, right? Whether you look at it from the Holocaust to this, it starts with, we're just persecuting Jewish people. Then it's like, actually, we don't actually want any kind of disabled people anywhere. Actually, we don't like Romanian gypsies either, so they might as well go. And then it starts, you know what I mean? And the whole Ibrahim Traore thing to me is very disappointing, but not surprising, because it's showboating in a way. It taps into people's fears of being at the bottom, in the sense that, okay, well, I'm a woman, but at least I know in my country, gay people are below me in this pyramid.
Sure.
Or in this hierarchy.
Yeah.
But you forget that once we've removed all gay people, your rights are next as a woman. You know, as a woman, for me, I'll never understand homophobia. You're the same person, or rather, Shabu, as a woman, I'm a 93 baby, so I never experienced it. But I do remember a time where my grandmother would say that there was certain things that she couldn't do. She couldn't get a driver's license because she was a woman. She couldn't do this because she was a woman. She couldn't open her own bank account because she was a woman. All those things, you know? So you can't fight for women's rights and then say, oh no, but homophobia is allowed, whether it be for religious reasons or whatever reasons. You're going to be next. You're next your rights will be next removed. We must always fear a society that wants to strip anyone of their rights. Because that is a society that is built on control and not freedoms.
Yeah.
And so if I'm trying to control this demographic, and then I'm going to try and control this, United States is a great example of that.
Divide and Conquer is thriving right now.
You know, the immigrants, I'll use this example, the immigrants who are of Mexican descent, for example, they thought, oh no, it's not going to be us who are holding green cards who are going to be deported by Donald Trump. It's going to be all these illegal immigrants. Nobody took the time to hear that what Donald Trump was saying the whole time was that immigrants are a problem in this country. So when they are now being shipped and ICE is all over the show and it's capturing them, even though they have their green cards or they're in the process, they were surprised because they were willing to sacrifice, you know, the next person.
Other groups of humanity.
Exactly.
Sure.
Now you're shocked that it's happening to you, you know, because your hate has overridden rationality and logic and just thinking that if he's willing to do this to this person, what absolves me from having the same effect? And so that's kind of the society of individualism that we're currently living in, where we believe that we will be absolved. And it's a survival thing. Nothing is good in our country. You know, nothing is working. Nobody's getting jobs. So it's you know that if you put rats in a bucket, they'll all climb on each other, trying to drag each other down to get to the top because they're trying to save themselves. It's survival. But at the same time, you have to have a little bit more thought into it. That if it's this person, I'm next. I'm not absolved from the wrath of politicians and just the world in general.
We're nearing the end of our conversation. Do you still have hope for South Africa?
Always. I love this country more than... I've traveled the world. Let me tell you something. There's no better country than South Africa. As a people, we're a really good people. You know, I sometimes get frustrated that the things we are most naturally good at are the things that we invest the least in. You know, we're so good at dancing. Why don't we have programs and things geared towards that? We're so good at throwing grooves. Or grooving. Why don't we
formalize it?
That? Yeah. Ibiza became a party capital.
Correct.
What's stopping us from Miami has become a full-on party capital. What's stopping us from doing that?
Sure.
I believe in this country. You see it in everything, dude. Like, you see it in the help that you get when you're lost. Simple things like that. You see it in your neighbors, you know, being able to borrow. I mean, not us who live in the suburbs now, but, you know, those kinds of things. I think as a country in general, we're very good at things also. We're a bunch of winners. And the only thing that's almost like stopping us is the people we've put in charge. Just clearly don't have the vision and are hell bent on squeezing this country dry before they lose power. But I always believe in South Africa. I believe in the people. I believe in the country itself. I believe in economic reform for this country so that we can realize our best dreams. You would never convince me to leave at all. This is the best country in the world.
What's that one thing Amahle Jaxx knows for sure and that she's absolutely certain of?
What's the one thing that I'm certain of in this world? It's going to be a little bit cheesy, but umntu ngumntu ngabantu.
Sure.
We don't have platforms without people. We don't have musicians. We don't have trending dancers without people. We don't have a country without people. We don't have a society, communities. We don't have anything without people. I know that for certain. And I think that's why it's so important to continuously give back to people if you can, small, big, to continuously invest in ourselves and other people as well. That's something I know for sure. And that without people, we won't be able to take this country to where we need it to go. So, yeah.
My lovely sister, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Absolute privilege. I had fun, even though we went deep. But I think it's conversations we needed to have.
I appreciate it.
They're absolutely important. And people come onto our platforms are very young people. And sometimes they need to not hear about indaba zabantu and reflect and take decisions that will change their own lives.
No, thank you so much for having me, and congratulations on this wonderful platform. Like, what you are doing, I think is very necessary. having conversations like this where we kind of find out how young people can involve themselves or maybe change thinking or inspire. Or so congratulations to you and your team, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. It's been an absolute privilege. Don't forget to vote. That's one important thing that Amahle shared with us in this conversation. And remember, umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu, which directly translates that we are who we are because of other people. Be kind, be loving, and show people some grace as you continue enjoying your day after watching this episode. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and make sure you share this conversation with somebody else whom you deem it will change their lives. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.